It's a pleasure to welcome Tom Quinn to the Montrose Talks podcast today. Tom is a partner at Birketts, heading up the family law department in London. He's an internationally recognised lawyer who helps high net and ultra high net worth individuals seeking strategic result-focused solutions. Tom's mantra is resolve matters promptly with minimal cost and acrimony. Tom is with us today to share his personal experience of being a high-profile lawyer whilst also living with ADHD and a recent diagnosis, I understand. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really good to be here. Thank
Really great to see you. So, Tom, for listeners who might not know you yet, by the end of this, they certainly will. Would you give me a quick introduction to who you are and what you do?
I'm a partner in a law firm, Birketts, in London, in St Paul's. I specialise matrimonial law, team of 7 at the moment. I also live in London. I have a wife who also works full-time, and we have 2 children, 13 and 15. So we have a pretty full plate at the moment.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. So, we're going to dive straight in.
Yeah, please.
So we're going to talk about ADHD today, really. And what I'm always interested to learn is, when did ADHD first come on your radar? When did you first realise there was probably something else that might need some investigation?
That's a tough one, because the way I sort of regarded myself was sort of different to that. So what I used to think about myself was, I have a short attention span, I'm a fidget, I can't sit still, that sort of thing, without knowing that it was ADHD or anything like that. I mean, that might hark back to school, in all honesty, without knowing that there was anything wrong with me, or actually thinking necessarily that I was much different from other people. Maybe I just found school boring and that sort of thing. With work, it definitely started to rear its head when I was working at a previous firm for a while. Just, again, it was more that thing of just not being able to sit still. Like, I would often be bouncing around, going to say hi to other work colleagues, just because I needed to get up, and I always needed to. I can't sit down for any protracted length of time.
Sure.
But I just go on with it, basically. So I never really explored doing anything about it until much more recently, when I was just taking a bit of a time out from work in terms of thinking about how I wanted to approach things, and finding work stress sort of getting harder to manage, only because you have a big team and you have more responsibility, that sort of thing. So I was starting to take a look at myself a bit more in that sense. My wife, Nicola, had also said, I mean, she's been banging on at me for ages to go and see someone who's got ADHD. And I'm like, well, even if I have, I've sort of been managing it myself for a long time, and sort of dealing with things. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that.
Yeah, I'm interested to learn more about how you've managed your ADHD post-diagnosis, yes.
Well, pre-diagnosis, without realizing it was there. So the big issue, and being a lawyer, it's not ideal, I don't think. The sort of symptoms that ADHD brings about, and is not ideal for lawyers in terms of focus, organization, that sort of thing. But one of the things I did do was I wear noise defenders.
Okay.
So to shut out outside noise. Distraction is the worst, is the biggest challenge for me personally. And the annoying, and that's why email is also annoying as well. So if I'm trying to sit down and just do tasks or focus on one particular thing, previously what I do is turn my emails off. So you can go offline on Microsoft,
Sure.
that sort of thing. And I'd have the noise defenders on, which I actually wear all the time, or I've got my AirPods in for calls and so forth. So those are the sort of organic ways that I manage it myself. The big breakthrough for me, obviously, was when I went to see a psychiatrist, and we discussed this, and he got me to complete the DIVA form, that standardized ADHD form that you can do. So I completed that, went back to see him. He said, yep, you got ADHD. I'm like, well, so what? About a few years, I don't really care.
Sure.
And he said, do you want to try some medication? I was slightly nervous about doing that. I'd rather not, I suppose. In an ideal world, we wouldn't put any medication inside ourselves. But I thought, okay. And he prescribed me a low dosage of, I think relatively, of a drug called Elvans, 30 milligrams every time I want to use it, basically, because it works pretty much straight away. I think it works within, it's quick release, so it takes about 30 minutes to 60 minutes to kick in, then lasts about a day, and then it wears off again.
Okay.
So I jumped straight onto that.
Okay. Well, that's good news. And I want to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But I'm really interested to know, prior to your diagnosis, ADHD people will be looking for dopamine hits. Okay. We talked a little bit before we sat down and started this interview about procrastination, but dopamine hits really in terms of being able to look for something that's more interesting and more exciting than the task I've got at hand.
Yeah.
I mean, you've come on your bike today. You're obviously a keen cyclist. I'm really interested to learn about what you did and what coping mechanisms you had in place to deal with that.
Professionally, the way it used to work is that I'm working for someone else. I don't, in terms of the office hierarchy, there are partners, maybe even senior associates. I'd be working for them, so they're sort of cracking the whip a little bit. So that helps you because you've got no choice, right? Obviously, when you become a partner, you're at the top of the tree, and then it's just your client. It's different, and that's a difficulty. In terms of managing it, I mean, I honestly, outside of these things of trying to minimize distractions, I don't know that I had any particular mechanisms in place or structures in place to help me. I was naturally sort of, not disorganized is the wrong word, because I tried to stay on top of things and I had to professionally, but I didn't have the same sort of structures in place that other people might have, or some of my colleagues would have. But it's a tough one. I think I genuinely, I really thought about that. I sort of muddled through, basically, and it was fine. One thing that is noticeable, I think, and this was different for me, I do think that I would experience the highs of work more acutely and the lows of work more acutely than other people, than my colleagues. So if things are going really well, my mood would be more elevated, or I'd be too happy about it than my colleagues would. If I have a good day at the office, I'd be I could be on a real high, and then obviously when the converse happens, when it's the other way around, you've got a really bad day, I'd feel that acutely as well. And so that's something I notice. Also, the other big thing about it is you just have a lot of energy, but it's energy that's not necessarily easy to channel into being a lawyer, the desk job.
I understand that. And channeling that energy can be done in a hyper focused way, but often at the last minute.
That's
Did you find that?
Yeah, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did find that actually. But then it's so difficult because many people, so many of us actually, sort of leave things to the last minute. But what does leave things to the last minute mean? And their last minute might be totally different to mine. So that does, I think that applies to all of us to some extent. But then if you do a deep dive into actually what they mean by that, you're like, oh, actually, you're not leaving it to the last minute at all, whatever it might be. But I do know that could be true for me. Yeah.
It's very interesting because, ADHD is quite a personal experience, really. And I've met people who've prepared for a task. And then I see people, myself included, who didn't do any preparation for a task and just freewheeled into it. So it's quite interesting because you talked there about about your experience of how you might have felt something in a high and how you might have felt something in a low. There's things like rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria as well, about, gosh, I'm going to put that off because I don't want to do it because I might not do it well enough. So there are many mechanisms that are in place. So it's fascinating when you start talking to people who have been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm interested to learn whether you had any misconceptions about ADHD prior to being diagnosed, or if it was even something that featured.
No, I hadn't really thought about it. When it became a thing, and you think about what it is, even without having any expertise or deeper knowledge on it, I'd be thinking, well, yeah, I probably have got it because I do have a short attention span, can't sit still. Those are things I could always come back to. Easily distracted. Those are the sort of the main pillars that, as an outsider, and just not really thinking about this, what I take from ADHD as being, before I'd sort of done any sort of research into it or deeper dive into it. And I absolutely had those issues. I suppose what I was thinking, what I should have done and I didn't do, but also I don't know when that started. When I first thought, well, I probably have got it. I honestly don't know whether that's 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. I don't think would have been that long ago, because I don't remember in previous jobs ever thinking I need to explore working on myself in some way because I've got ADHD. I've got these issues.
What was the moment you realized that you needed to do something and seek professional advice?
There really wasn't a moment. There was a time previously maybe as a school kid, but then we all think we're a bit different as kids, don't we? When I knew that there was something up with me in the sense that I can't concentrate very, very easily. I get distracted. I can't sit still. And that's just gone on and always been there. Then it gets to the stage where, okay, now I've got this thing, ADHD and everything. Maybe I've got that, but okay, I can manage it. And then it was my wife telling me, Nicholas, telling me, go and have a conversation with someone about this and see where it takes you. That's where it happened. I don't think I would have done it otherwise. And I would have been fine. Genuinely, I would have been fine. But it has been brilliant. The sad thing about it is, had I had this diagnosed earlier, then things would have been better earlier in life. If that makes sense. Yeah, end of the world. I'm happy with my lot and everything. But there's no avoiding that. But Jonathan, there wasn't any specific. Oh right, I've got to go. It's always been there. I guess it's. Do you know? I think I'm not sure whether there's any truth to this. Maybe you could tell me because you're more of an expert than I am. But it can get more acute as you get older. I think, and my inability to sit still is definitely got way worse or way more pronounced. I don't mind it, so I won't call it what Nicola does, but I don't mind it. So it's definitely got significantly more pronounced.
Yes.
That's the one thing I do know is the case, actually, thinking about that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we do see people coming in who are post 40, post 50 in some cases, where the symptoms don't necessarily worsen, they just become more noticeable, and we become less tolerant of them, and we feel that there are things that need to be done in order to just understand what is going on. Because when people are running businesses, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs, we work with a lot of people who are high performing, but they're not necessarily in an environment where they've got a lot of people around them that they are accountable to.
No.
They might be accountable for.
Yes.
So ultimately, they can do what they want when they can come in and out. They can do the work they want to do. They can farm off the other bits. So it can go under the radar for a long, long time. It's when, as your wife Nicola said to you, is when people start to identify some of the issues, possible consequences, or fallout from one's ADHD symptoms, because they do, as I know from my own personal experience, blur into family life and have a negative impact that I don't see necessarily. So it's very interesting. So you've got people coming in with teenagers because they can see hyperactivity and they need to do something about it. And then there can be a bit of a gap. And then people coming in late 30s, 40s going, yeah, I really need to get on. There are things that I need to do in my career. I want to get to a certain point, but there's something stopping me and I'm just not able to get to where I want to get to. And I think it's ADHD. So that in a sense, and we see a lot of sort of women in their 45, 50 who've kids have now left home, all gone to university, they're working, but their focus has often been on their children. And now that responsibility's gone, it's like turning a mirror, like there's something more going on here for me, because there's this anxiety. Is it a hormonal issue? Is it a mental health issue? When actually it can be ADHD too. So there's many different presentations and many different situations and circumstances at certain age brackets, but it's unbelievable the amount of people who are being diagnosed, I say, later on in life. Post diagnosis, post medication, do you feel that that's improved your family life?
My wife wanted me to go to get this checked out, diagnosed probably as the senile would be, and then have something done about it because Nicola's in it, by the way. I drive her mad because I can't sit still and all that sort of thing. And she's right, and that's true. And she's also, when we have any sort of domestic bust up at home or anything, and she goes on about that, bangs rights on that 100%. So I went on that basis. The irony is that I'm taking the medication just for work. So I only take it during the working day, say 5 days a week or whatever, because I actually like what ADHD brings to my life outside of work at this time in my life, because not sitting still works for me because there's so much to be done with kids, domestic stuff. There's always stuff to be done around the house. So So it's just very, very helpful to have that energy. even if I drive them mad at times, I drive Nicola mad at times. So that's the one thing I take from it in that sense. And then professionally, it's really been a game changer. And almost the sad thing about it is, God, if I had this X years ago, school, previous jobs, when I had difficulties or whatever, it would have absolutely changed things for me. There's no doubt about that.
What do you feel now ADHD has given you from a benefits perspective?
Energy, just enormous amounts of energy. You can just keep going constantly. I find that brilliant. So you're always doing stuff. You do get these moments still of real focus when your interest is really piqued in something or something. So that's good as well. And that not being able to sit still thing, yeah, I do find of great assistance at times, as I've said. At the office, less so. I don't think there's any way sugarcoating that having ADHD and being a lawyer are not specified, but uneasy bedfellows. Generally, there are some that having that energy can be helpful, but it's like it's not a sit down type energy. It's a physical energy that you tend to have, I find, or that I have certainly. You can experience, as I said earlier, sort of elevated highs, which can be helpful at times as well. But equally, it goes the other way as well. So I think it's pretty tough, and it's just a question of, I think what would have been beneficial for me would have been knowing that I had this earlier in life, whether or not I took medication, and then thinking, okay, I've got this, then you can learn what you can do about it. And then you can manage yourself, and other people can learn about it and manage you as well better, because you respond perhaps differently to others.
Do you think having ADHD post-diagnosis and starting medication has improved your work capability?
Yeah, just enormously. Two ways for me. One of them might be personal to me that may be unrelated to ADHD. The first one, though, is focus. It's being able to sit down and just focus on things is in a way that I wasn't able to previously, where so the better way of putting it is I'm much less easily distracted than I used to be. That's the thing, I think. And that's been a godsend. For instance, that would have been amazing in exams.
Yes.
And it just would have been brilliant. That's number one. So that's fantastic. It's less important for me now, actually, as a partner, when I'm less doing big legal tasks. There's my job remit is broader now, but as a more junior lawyer, it would have been really, really good. And the other one is, as I said, I don't know whether this is ADHD related or not. But one of the effects of the drugs I'm on is that it makes me I'm just more positive, and that's also been a godsend. Because whereas before I probably characterize myself as being sort of glass half empty. Now it's the complete reverse. Whilst the drugs are taking their effects, so that's been really, really good. So yeah, it's been a game changer for me, definitely.
And do you think that your work colleagues have seen a change in you that they would be able to recognise? Have you had any feedback from anybody?
Yes, and yes. For me personally, it's just not a big deal at all. Having ADHD and the fact that I'm on medication for it, I find it so interesting myself personally that I've shared it with all and sundry. I probably bored too many people about it as well, Jonathan, if I'm being honest. But yeah, they've all noticed the difference. That's for sure.
That's good news.
Yeah, and it is that just there's a intensity to me, I think, with work and just being more positive. Not that I was lazy and negative before. I'm not saying it's not that extreme, but it's some people don't notice the difference. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's great. It's really interesting. I've had a similar experience. And a couple of weeks ago, I was sat in a meeting with my ops director, and we had an hour-long meeting. And at the end of it, he said, "This is unbelievable. You've sat with me for 1 hour. You've not checked your phone. You've not got up to go to the toilet, and you've not got out your seat. And you've been absolutely focused in on the conversation. And we've got through everything we needed to get through."
Yeah.
And I thought, well, actually, if that is such a huge benefit to me and for my staff, because
Isn't it? It's brilliant. Yeah.
they can see that and feel like, because for me, part of it was that I could seem disinterested in what
Or you're looking around and that sort of thing. Yeah.
completely, and actually comes across as quite rude.
Rude. Yeah.
So when I had my assessment, my wife was also interviewed by the doctor, and it answered a lot of questions for her the response from her about how I was deeply saddened me, because whilst I didn't feel that way, she'd said that I'd been at some really important events, family events, in body, but not in mind.
Yeah.
And I've missed some really significant things. I feel really sad about that.
Yeah. And
It hurt my heart.
yeah. Well, sorry to hear that, but yeah, I do know what you mean. Actually, you've jogged my memory about another thing, actually, Jonathan, and that is eye contact. So I struggle with that generally, and I don't know whether I still do or not. But actually, maybe you can tell me. But I remember.
I don't think so. Not anymore.
Yeah, but I remember. So the first day, because this happened so recently, so I first went on the medication. I think second half of February, and I went home from after the first day of taking it, which I know was a Wednesday. I'd been to see the guy on a Tuesday, my psychiatrist on Tuesday, and then I'd filled out the prescription the same day. I took my first one on a Wednesday, and the effects of it is quite strong to begin with, as I think you know as well when you first go on this medication. And it was a bit, oh, okay, blimey. You do get used to it. But it to begin with, it is strong. And I do remember going back home, same day, sitting around the kitchen table having dinner with the family, and my daughter India was just like, "What are you doing?" I said, what do you mean? You won't stop staring at me? Because I just don't. Ordinarily I just don't do eye contact particularly well. And she was saying when I was just talking to her, I just like that really intently like that. It's like, okay, sorry. So completely freaking out just by looking at her. So that was quite an amusing sort of side, but I hadn't really appreciated.
No.
Yeah.
That's really interesting when you start getting the feedback and listening and hearing about how you've been, how I've been, how people are now receiving us, and that it's a change for them as well, because they will have experienced you in a particular way for many, many years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's 2.0 and there's a change. And I find it absolutely fascinating. And we've talked about already off camera some of the real benefits that you've experienced, and it's so great to hear. And that's what this is about, really. It's about sharing our personal experiences, so people can get a better education and understanding of what ADHD is, because there is a lot of misconception out there. And it's also, the good side of ADHD. There's also a dark side of ADHD, and as we talked about earlier. But one of the things I'm really keen to learn about, do you feel that the legal profession is where it needs to be currently with supporting people with ADHD in the workplace?
Do I think there's sufficient understanding and education around it? Probably not. I don't think on balance, but it's hard for me to comment on the legal sector as a whole.
Sure.
I think there are two things that are happening. I think there's been a move towards recognizing mental health conditions, as we know. It's like night and day. If you compare now with, say, 10 years ago, whatever it might be. I think there is also a slight cynicism as well, because people are getting the system, as we know, with kids and so forth. And everybody's got it nowadays, as quote unquote, as some people sometimes say or whatever. And I know that as we touched upon earlier, when I went to see my pharmacist and he was telling me about the uptake in people being prescribed Elvines, the percentage increase, I can't remember what it was. I think it might have said 10,000% or something. I can't remember the time frame, but it was extraordinary. So there's that as well. But we are getting better, definitely. And it's really important because if someone has, the great thing about being diagnosed with ADHD is not that you're given a label, but the purpose of that label really is to, right, if you've got this, then we know what to do about it. So we can help you because you're different from others who don't have it, obviously. And you can then better manage them because you can identify what to do with them or how they need to be helped. Because where they will struggle, and then, okay, so you're definitely going to struggle in these ways consistently. So I can help in this way. They need more careful management sometimes, I think, in some ways. And I think I would have probably, if I'm looking back, one is be quite positive and that sort of thing. So it's an education thing in that sense, I think.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And I imagine now you will be able to identify those clients of yours that are potentially neurodivergent and be able to have possibly a different relationship with them, be able to support them through the legal process in a slightly different way from what they may have experienced with you.
Yeah, Jonathan, that's like one of the biggest parts of our job anyway, whether or not they've got is understanding your client. It sounds really cliche, and I don't mean it to, but I really do see that as one of the most important tasks is understanding the client as much as you can and figure out then how to manage them and to deal with them and engage with them and to take them through a really stressful process. So yeah, knowing if they've got ADHD or not, which can jump out. I've got a client at the moment I'm pretty sure does. You have to be on them in the right way a lot because they can be disorganized. They're dealing with a stressful process anyway. Then they're going to handle that possibly not as well as others, or bury their head in the sand and so forth. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. So next question is, if you could go back and talk to your younger self before you knew you had ADHD, what would you say? What would you tell him?
Knowing what I know now and assuming that I couldn't go and get yourself a prescription, it would have been good to know that I was a bit different, and that's fine. Because actually thinking about it, and as I think about it now, there would be times when I would, because of the approach I would take, I'd beat myself up. Like, why am I not doing this? And like X, Y, and Z are doing it or whatever. What's wrong with me? And I think the main thing I do is be sort of super positive to myself. And I think that's the best thing I could do really and sort of not criticize yourself too much for not working like my peers would.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the thing is that Jonathan, it's been a real slow burn for me because I sort of vaguely knew that I was sort of a bit different in a way, but I've had to manage that. So I've had myself without knowing what I'm doing. If you know what I mean, I just know that you've got this, so these are the things you need to be thinking about doing. I didn't know that, so you sort of organically try to figure out what to do, such as putting noise defenders on or so. All that works for me, and that sort of thing, and just. I'm trying to think what I did to try and give myself more structure. And I don't know that I did all the time because I knew I needed that, but I just don't think I did it.
No,
You know?
absolutely. Got ADHD makes you, and it's something that in my personal experience, we live with and we accept it as our norm. It's only when we look back at where we've had some challenges over the years, and they'd really been benchmarked by looking at colleagues and what they're doing and how they're operating, and how come they can do that? Why don't I think like that? Or I'm thinking they're looking at me going, how has he got so much energy? How is he able to do more in a day by 11 a.m. in the morning? So ADHD really, I think, has many attributes associated with it. And quite a lot of people in my experience are afraid or really worried about losing that edge if they did go down the medication route.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yes. What was your experience with that?
Well, you know, my experience is not that at all. No, it's just been, for me, it's been great. But it's nice because the positives of ADHD I can enjoy, I can leverage on the weekends. Which is getting stuff done and just running around like a headless chicken. It works. Okay. It does irritate Nicola, but hey ho. But she's learned to tolerate it, I think. I'll tell you another thing that's interesting, actually, going back to what would you have done? What would you do differently, or what would you tell yourself now? Sorry, back then, no, what you know now. So coincidentally, we were looking at my wife was looking at getting our daughter India diagnosed for ADHD because it seemed pretty clear that she had it. And I think this was last year. So this before we explored it with me. And when we went to see a doctor, the doctor said to my wife, well, the only thing that could be done really with ADHD to assist her at school in education is to go onto medication. Well, that's the only thing that will ultimately happen through going through this process. And then that's when we were like, and this is before knowing anything about it myself.
Sure.
I don't really want to do that because we do know that there's no getting around the fact that ADHD medication is quite strong. It is. Mine's got amphetamine at the end of the word, and I'm all for that for mature adults you've got life experience and so forth behind them. I'm a bit nervy about giving that to my 14, 15-year-old daughter. Understandable. But so other than doing the things that I said to you in terms of reducing distractions as much as I can, I suppose the other thing, as I said to you, was try to be really positive about yourself. It sounds really corny, but I think it's probably true, because you do get into quite a negative frame. I found I could get into quite a negative frame of mind. There's not much else you can do, I don't think. But
Yeah, it's interesting really, because we as a service offer both medication pathway.
I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
what stuff outside of that outside of meds, do you recommend?
Yeah, so we've got a medication pathway, which a large proportion of our clients want to investigate, but we've also got therapeutic models, which younger or teenage clients are more interested in, or the parents might be interested in, should I say. And that can be therapy, that can be ADHD coaching, which looks at the sort of the practical executive functioning and helping to learn and understand more about themselves, and some practical tools that will help them. Meditation, mindfulness, and then we look at nutrition, exercise, and other things like that, because people with ADHD are looking for dopamine fixes, right? A lot of the time they're looking for something.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're interested in what they're doing, they can focus in on that and get it completed. If they're not, a slight distraction can take them out of the room, which you've talked about and you've experienced, hence the noise defenders. So what we always looking at doing is like, well, what's going to be the best fit for this individual, and that's going to support them in their years doing their GCSEs, or moving into their A levels, or whatever it might be. And in some cases, we might look at medication and therapeutic support at the same time, so they can overlap, because it's a life change taking medication, and it requires adapting, not just for the people taking the medication, but for the family, people they work with, the staff. And it's about preparing people for that. So going down that therapeutic route, as you were just describing with your daughter there, it's about helping them to understand more about what is going on. Attending an ADHD group, that's also very good. Peer support, learning about other people's experience. And what did you do there? The conversation we were having earlier. So how was that for you? How did that affect you? And we've learned quite a lot about one another in a short space of time. That's been really helpful. So it's always looking at sort of personalized treatment pathways that are going to be most appropriate for that person, their circumstances, family situation, and that we would always consider that.
Yeah. The other thing that I did do was which was just entirely unrelated to, I think must have helped me personally, but then it helps everybody, is exercise. And it's getting that buzz of doing some exercise, because then you think, well, but everybody gets this, and yes, they do. Everybody gets a bit of a positive high, or whatever it is, from doing some exercise. It's just good for us all, but maybe it can be more pronounced for some than others. I don't know, but that's certainly helped me as well, I think.
Absolutely. I think exercise is key. Nutrition is key, and nutrition when on medication is also very important. Supplementation in some cases as well, because with the medication there can be a loss of appetite. So it's about, well, am I getting in what I need to get into my body? So the diagnostic tools that we run with the nutritionist is also really important to help people understand their own internal system, so they can make a changes and adapt what they eat, when they eat, how they eat, and any supplementation that they need to take. So there are lots of different things. I mean, you've talked about exercise, and you've come on your bike today, as I said, and you've experienced one of the 7 hills of Sheffield, and you have fun going down it, hopefully, on your way back to the train station. But are there any habits, the weekend particularly, that to sort of help you feel grounded, or that you do often just to keep you balanced
When I'm on the medication,
off the medication on a weekend?
no, sorry, I can't. No,
No,
genuinely, I don't think. No, I don't. Honestly, and I probably do need to. Seriously, I probably do need to look into that, because right now, at the moment, given where I am in my life, I lean into it on the weekends, and I'm fine with it. But honestly, I probably need to think about that, because I don't do anything other than sort of, that's fine, let's go. And maybe that's probably not how I do annoy myself sometimes. I'm like, just relax for 15 minutes. I just don't do it. I just simply don't do it at all. So that is honestly probably something I need to look at.
Yeah.
I'll speak to Nicola. I'm sure she'll listen to
Maybe.
this. Yeah. So seriously.
Maybe. If somebody was to come to you and say, Tom, I think I might have got ADHD. I'm considering medication. I'm considering an assessment, but I'm not quite sure what to do. What would you tell them based on your experience?
Number one, yeah, go and get it tested out by all means. Number two, either way, well, if you are diagnosed with ADHD, it really isn't a big deal. I really don't think it's a big deal. Maybe it's for some, and forgive me if there are some that are so acute that they can barely function in life. But it's not. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And there are definite benefits to it, as we touched upon. Maybe not in working life so much, but there are benefits to it. And that's the thing I stress. And then if you do get that diagnosis, then do a deep dive on it and figure out what you can do with what you have to make life, or to get the best out of it. It might be a better way of putting it. The medication's great for me personally, but I think be respectful of it because it's strong medication. But I think, yeah, my main stress is don't let it sort of collapse in a heap because you've got this label of being ADHD in any way, shape, or form, because it's totally manageable and it has its plus points as well anyway. So yeah, but don't hide away from it at the same time, because if you've got that label, then you can know what to do about it. That's the whole point of it, and that's what I could have benefited from in my youth. Not the meds necessarily, but think, okay, I've got this now. What can we do about that? Therapy and everything to begin with, particularly in your youth, rather than do this sort of slow drip feed of figuring out things that help me. Maybe got to jump. Okay, well, now I know I've got this. I know I need to do X, Y, and Z. Let's try doing these things. That's not how it worked for me. It took years and years of, okay, you just think this helps me in some way. I don't know why, but it does.
So finally,
Yes.
what's next for you in terms of your ADHD journey? I know you were fairly early on in it, so it's going to unfold as you go forward, but from a personal, professional, or advocacy position.
From a personal perspective, not much other than sort of just monitoring how I'm getting on with the medication I'm on and how's that affecting things for me professionally and outside of it. And I suppose I need to keep an eye on it personally on the weekends and that sort of thing when I'm not at the office, when it's not being sort of medicated at all. And I need to keep an eye on that, actually, as we touched upon earlier. Otherwise, yeah, I'm all for helping people at work that have been diagnosed and just giving them my experience of it, really. And just making sure nobody sort of, gets a diagnosis and then sort of collapses in the heap thinking, woe is me, I've got ADHD, because it's not like that. Sure at all. That's the big point, I think, that I'd want to be telling anybody. And that it's a good thing that you've been diagnosed, because now you can deal with it. And that's the great thing. It is. It's a really good thing. So it's a positive in that sense. But I'm fine with it. And the reason why I was very happy to come and see you was because it's very new to me, because I've only just been diagnosed. I'd managed it previously, albeit over a long period of time, and probably managed it slowly before then. And then it's been diagnosed now, and it's being sorted out, and it's really helping me. And it's very vivid to me because it's been so pronounced. So that's good.
Excellent. Tom, thank you very much indeed for joining.
Thanks, Riley. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, seriously, I was. Thank you.